First command, let me use your boat. Second command, and what that is, let me take the most valuable and empty possession you have and use it. Secondly, go out in the deep and let down for a catch. And then the third is probably the most important. Peter, when he realizes all these fish come in and he realizes he's in the presence of the holy, when he realizes that he is in the presence of the supernatural, he's afraid. He was afraid of Jesus. That's what he was afraid of. And he was afraid that a sinner, this is what he would have learned as a Jewish boy, a sinner cannot be in the presence of God. A sinner cannot be in the presence of that which is holy. And so he says, depart from me, I'm sinful. I just realized there's revelation he's having of Jesus' sovereignty over creation. He's got a growing revelation of who Jesus is, and when he encounters this miraculous power, it makes him afraid, and he wants to get away from Jesus. And Jesus' answer is sort of comical, the way he seeks to reassure Peter, because he says, don't worry. He says, do not be afraid. And here's the consolation. You're going to be a fisher of men. And I just find this sort of amusing, because it's like Jesus is saying to him, no, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. And he doesn't say, don't be afraid. I'm not going to require anything of you. He doesn't say, don't be afraid. It's just me, Jesus. I'm just mild. I'm not so big after all. He doesn't say that. He says, don't be afraid. I'm going to make you into a fisher of men. I'm going to take you to an even bigger vision of your life. Don't be afraid. This is not about me being here to identify you as a sinner. This is about me being here to identify what your destiny is all about. Don't be afraid of your destiny. Don't be afraid. I am here not to rob you of your life, but to give you your life. I'm not here to simply lord over you so that you will cower in fear because of your sinful nature. I am here to raise your expectation and send you forth into a destiny. It's an astounding thought, and it's a deep thought, but this is true of the gospel, that the answer to your fear is not diminishing who Jesus is in your eyes, but increasing it. And the answer to your fear of God is not seeing that God is small and harmless, but seeing that God is immense but good. Do not be afraid. He didn't want Peter to be afraid because he wanted Peter near him. He didn't want Peter to be afraid because he wanted Peter to be available for a higher destiny. Fear would keep Peter from Jesus, and fear would keep Peter from fulfilling his destiny. In the same way, Peter, that I am using your old empty boat for a higher purpose, I'm going to use your life for a higher purpose. Those are the kind of commands that Jesus gives. I'd like to use that empty place in your life, that unproductive, empty, impoverished place. I can use that. I'm going to come get down into that. Let me use that, Jesus says, in the New Testament of grace. Go out in the deep and let down the nets for a catch. Go to a place of deeper love and grace than you've ever been before, and let me make you productive in a way that you never imagined before. Do not be afraid. I'm moving you into a destiny. This is the way Jesus speaks to us. This is the way Jesus is speaking to us today. What I'm saying is the gospel of grace doesn't mean that Jesus never asks you to do anything. It just means that what Jesus asks you to do and the commands that he gives are not burdensome. They're gifts. Because you are blessed and can never be separated from the love of God in Jesus Christ, the shed blood of Christ himself, it means, therefore, that the reason that we obey in the covenant of grace is not so we will find favor, but because we know we found favor. There's a very similar story in John chapter 21 that I just want to point you to as we finish up. In John chapter 21, this is after Jesus has been raised from the dead. And think of everything that Peter's been through. Peter, who has so wanted to follow Jesus, but has denied him over and over. Peter, who is hidden for fear of the Jews after the crucifixion. This Peter. And here's one of the appearances of Jesus. And I love the story. It's in John chapter 21, verse 1. After this, Jesus revealed himself again to the disciples by the Sea of Tiberias, and he revealed himself in this way. Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two others of the disciples were together. And Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. After everything that had taken place, all of the uproar and all of the fear, all the denial and the crucifixion and all the rumors of resurrection, all of the things that are going on, Peter just goes back to what's comfortable to him. I'm going fishing. And they said, we're going to go with you. And they go out and they get in the boat and they fish. But that night they caught nothing. Sound familiar? This is much later in Peter's life. This is a totally different story. But look how similar it is. They go fishing all night long. Same thing. He's like, I just want to go do something that I know how to do. And he goes fishing, and he doesn't catch any fish. They got to be remembering that night in which they fished all night long, and then Jesus went out and put in the deep, and they caught all those fish. But just as day was breaking, verse 4, Jesus stood on the shore. Yeah, the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. And Jesus said to them, children, do you have any fish? And they answered him, no. And he said to them, cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you'll find some. So they cast it, and now they're not able to haul it in because of the quantity of the fish. That disciple whom Jesus loved, that's what John called himself, therefore said to Peter, it is the Lord. And when Simon Peter heard that it was the Lord, he put on his outer garment, for his strip for work, and threw himself in the sea. The other disciples came in the boat, dragging the net full of fish, for they were not far from the land, but about 100 yards off. But Peter, unlike all the other disciples, when he realized it's the risen Lord Jesus, he throws himself down and starts swimming towards the shore. Couldn't care less about all the fish they just caught because Jesus was on the shore. This is a Peter who's begun to grasp the gospel. Instead of saying, depart from me, I'm a sinful man, he sees the risen Lord, and everything within him wants to go towards Jesus. The boat doesn't matter, the fish doesn't matter, the net doesn't matter, the other people don't matter. All that matters to him is Jesus, because he's come to understand something of the grace of God. So when people ask, well, are you saying in the gospel of grace that there are no commands from God? Absolutely not. God is telling us many things he wants us to do. And Jesus is speaking to us. What I'm saying is, in the gospel of grace, these aren't fearful things. These aren't burdensome things. These commands are the gifts of God. If you need something in your life by way of blessing, ask Jesus to tell you what you should do, because his promise is in his command. And that's the gospel.